Okay, our decline here, average picker. So we're not actually going to be picking any locks in this video. We're just going to be talking about some tips and tricks for if you're just starting out. Something that may help you. So this isn't, we're not going to look at how a lock works or how to pick your first lock or anything like that. We're going to assume you've picked your first lock and now you're asking yourself, you're saying, how can I be as average as you are, average picker? Really want to be average. So that's what we're going to be focusing on, okay? So the first thing to remember is you're doing this for fun. You don't have to get the lock open, okay? There's nothing wrong with not getting the lock open. As long as you are making some forward progress and you are learning and absorbing something, whether it is about lock picking in general or whatever the specific lock is you're picking on, just be making some forward progress, okay? You're doing this for fun. There's no shame in it. Don't compare yourself to like popular YouTubers and stuff. I know it's real easy. You watch somebody out there, you know, maybe you get a hold of like, say like a Schleg Everest, right? And you know, you Google up and to see how to pick it and you watch some guy knock it out in less than a minute and then you're like, oh, I suck, because you know, you've spent, you know, you're crossing the 10-15 minute mark on it. So what? It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. So as long as you're making some kind of progress, you're learning something about it, you're good, okay? So the other thing you want to do is read Detail Overkill, okay? I will drop a link to it somewhere out there on the web. You can just find it by Googling. Just Google lockpicking Detail Overkill. It's a PDF, read it. It is superb. Also, if you're coming at this from the Reddit lockpicking sub, there's a link to it over in the sidebar, so you can get to it over there, okay? One of the first things you absolutely have to learn is you have to learn where the pins are in a lock, okay? And this, I know this sounds crazy, but I mean, chances are you get your, you know, first lockpick set and you pick around in it and it opens up and you think, ah, this is easy. And it is, in a way. Lockpicking is easy. If a pin needs to be lifted, you lift it. If it doesn't need to be lifted, don't lift it. But that's, you know, you're not learning anything there. So you need to learn where the pins are, okay? So if you happen to have something like this, maybe, or just any lock, really, don't even tension it. Okay, just sit there while you're watching a movie, right? Just run the pick back and forth. You know, count the pins as you do it. You know, just feel it around. You know, just feel for that springiness of what those picks feel like and what those pins feel like, okay? Figure out what a pin actually feels like. You know, get it on, that first one is fairly easy because you can usually see it. Get it on that first one, right? And just move it back and forth just a tad so you can start to learn where the center of it is, okay? And start lifting it some, just so you can kind of start to feel what spring tension is, you know, and get that buried into your head, okay? I mean, there's three states on the pins that you're going to need to learn, right? There's their normal state that they're in, when they're overset, and when they're set, okay? So that's the other thing you can do, especially if you have one of those clear locks or one of these cutaways, you know, over tension it, look at it, intentionally get some of those pins overset, right? Now that I'm telling you to do this, I'm not going to be able to actually get a pin to overset. But get one to overset, and then just start running the pick back and forth again on the inside, holding that tension, and feel what that feels like, right? You know, when you're a little kid and you lose a tooth, you end up running your tongue along your teeth. All of a sudden there's a little gap. It's going to be something like that, right? You're going to feel all of a sudden it's just going to dip in a little bit because that pin is set too high. But learn that, because you're going to be oversetting pins like crazy, especially when you're starting out, okay? The other thing you can do just put your finger on the back of the lock, right? I mean, chances are when you first go to pick, you're going to shove that pick all the way through a lock, right? I mean, you're going to get in there trying to work those back pins, and you're going to end up in some kind of position like that, right? Again, it doesn't really matter. You got it in the clamp or whatever. You know, put a finger back there. You feel that starting to hit your finger, hey, you've hit the back of the lock, there's nowhere to go. You know, you're lifting pins still, but you're lifting them with this part of the pick. And you're multi-lifting. Okay. The other thing you can do is mark your picks. All right. Somehow, it doesn't really matter. Let me see what we've got here. Okay. So here's a Euro style. Get that up in there at all? Okay. Don't have a key for this one, but you can see where the pins are housed, right? So get your pick on there and get an idea of how far back your pick needs to go to get to that first pin, right? And everyone, I know every lock is going to be a little bit different. Do not, you know, these lines, you can wear them off, so it's fine. We're talking about for a specific one. You know, so like I'm going to use this red Sharpie because I don't care. And I'm just putting a couple dots on the actual pick. Okay. See, I've got some marks on there. So now I know as the pick is going in, you can see those red marks disappearing. And when I get to the back one, I know, hey, that's the back pin. Okay. There's pin 5. There's pin 4. Okay. And it's not really gonna, this stuff is gonna wear off after a while. Don't worry about it. Did a couple swipes. It's already pretty clean. Let's see if I got anything else around. Oh. Paper clip. I mean, this one's kind of huge for this, but I mean, that's another thing you can do, right? You know where the pins are? Man, wedge a paper clip. Why not? Onto the pick. Okay, now you know when that paper clip bumps, right, up against the housing, you're right there on the last pin. Okay? I mean, it's ridiculous, I know, in a way, especially if you've been picking for a bit. But these are things you have to learn, and you're probably going to struggle with it initially. And so there's just, it's not hurting anybody. It's not doing anything to give yourself some indication of where those pins are at, right? And if someone says, hey, why are your pins got marks all over them? Your picks. Say, oh, I marked my picks, so I know where the pins are. I mean, this one's pretty old. This is from the SS Dev. You can see, I don't even remember what lock I was using it on. But I was having trouble finding a couple pins, so marked it up. So tensioning, I'll talk about tensioning here for a minute. Because everybody seems to have trouble tensioning. Again, we're talking very general rules of thumb here, okay? The minimum amount of tension you need to open the lock is the minimum amount of tension it takes to turn the key. So if you happen to have the key, right, put it in the lock, take your tensioning tool and just wedge it into the key there. And put your finger on it and just rotate it around, right? That is how much tension you need, okay? That is the minimum amount of tension it's probably going to take you to pick that lock, okay? That much. Now, that doesn't mean that that's how much tension is going to get the lock picked, but that gives you some indication of where to start, right? Unless you're picking an American 111 It's not going to do you any good. But for, most of your locks, especially your deadbolts, because, they're not sprung or anything, that's how much tension it is. So just put your tension rod in there and just learn that. Learn that amount. Okay? And that will give you at least a starting point for how much tension you need to be applying, right? And if your tensioner starts to end up getting bent, you've been using way too much tension, okay? So the other thing is, you've got, 5, 6 pins in there probably, maybe just 4, but you want to decrease your odds a little bit. So if you're using top of keyway tension, watch me find one that doesn't fit. Yeah, there you go. So if we're using top of keyway tension, one of the first half of the pins is going to bind first, most likely, okay? Not necessarily, but that's probably going to be the case, okay? So if you're doing top of keyway, start by checking the front of the lock. If you're doing bottom of the keyway tension, it's going to be the opposite. One of the pins in the back is most likely going to be a pin that binds first, right? So just get a mental picture of the pins, divide the lock in half. If you're doing bottom of the keyway, start towards the back. If you're doing top of keyway, start towards the front, okay? Now, this doesn't always hold true, of course, or anything like that. Like I said, this is just a general frame of reference on where to start, okay? And if you find that you're always starting in the front of the lock and you start chasing a false set around and around in a circle or something, reset it, start in the back. Change up what you're doing, okay? So that brings us to our last thing, really. Play around, okay? Like I said in the beginning, you can't get this wrong, all right? This is for fun. So just experiment and play, I mean, if you want to try to tension off the top with a technically bottom of the keyway tensioner, it's very awkward. Better that way. Go for it. Try it. See what, results it gets. Heck, if you want to stick it in the middle of the lock, I don't know why you're going to want to do this. You're going to learn real quick you can't reach the pins. But you know what? You want to try to tension it that way, and you want to try to wedge your pick in. It's not going to work, but try it, okay? Because you've learned now you can't tension it from the middle of the lock like that. So you've learned something, So yeah, don't be afraid to play around. We go to the SS Devs. Here, you've bought a pack of picks. And God, this thing, that is a tight fit right there. You bought a pack of picks, see if you can get your, a postal hook or something in there, just try it, see where that gets you, picking. It doesn't open, so what? You're just playing around, okay? You got a really steep deforest, see if that works. See how that feels for you, okay? You don't get anything. Yeah. Said we weren't going to be picking locks. I lied to you. But yeah, so there's no problem in that, though. You might find, hey, this actually works a heck of a lot better than whatever it is you've been using or been trying to use, okay? That being said, there's something really for trying to ignore how many picks you have in your set. Using one basic pick, let's get a more basic pick than this. This was a standard, I think, just hook from the Dangerfield Praxis set in 15 thousandths. I know it's tempting to want to use all of them, but it really helps to learn one pick, right, really well, okay? Learn the limitations of the one pick you have, what it'll do, what it won't do, and get really good with that one pick. Because what'll happen is you'll start to form a mental picture of what's going on in the lock as you pick more. And you'll start to understand more what the pick itself is doing and how it's interacting with the pins. And you'll start to get an idea of what pick, when you hit the limitations of something like this, you'll start to get a mental picture of, well, what do I need? Okay, and this stuff's going to start to slowly just kind of come into focus. And you're going to start thinking, okay, so I'm always hitting, I'm sorry, phone just rang. I'm always hitting, this, I'm overlifting, I think, the third pin every time I try to get into the back. If only I had something that was like dipped a little bit steeper or something, you'll start to get this mental idea, and then you'll look at your picks and you'll think, aha, that's a deforest. I can get in there with that. And I can switch. If this is giving you trouble in the front of the lock, you'll use this to pick the front pins, this to pick the back pins. Okay? There's no harm in that. So remember, you're doing it for fun. Play around. You don't actually have to get the lock open. Basically, just keep learning. Okay? If it's taking you 25, 30 minutes in a session to get something open, and 60 resets, so what? You're doing this for fun. So there you go. I'm going to take a phone call now, and I hope this has helped you at least somewhat. All right.